to regular session. And our first item tonight will be to, if you join me and say the pledge.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. First up tonight, we will have the superintendent's presentations. Jonathan?
Yes. Well, thank you so much, and thank you, Board, for allowing us to kick off tonight with just a wonderful Mason moment. This year, we have tried to build into our rhythm of work and our communication cadence some video representation of Mason moments that are happening around our district. We're trying to capture those to tell the story of what Mason Momentum looks like. So I'll turn it over to Tracy to start this video for us.
So this first one is going to feature some of our incredible athletes, and so we thought, this really was a wayfinding moment to have these students bring our community together with culture, and if you weren't there to be a part of witnessing what they did, we wanted to just share a little bit of that excitement.
All right, so if you're just tuning in to our live feed, which I know is a very popular live feed out there, and they're going to be thinking, was this ESPN? Because we have ESPN World Series All-Stars here tonight, and yes, this is better than ESPN. This is our very own comic culture representation going on around here, and these wonderful athletes. So we are excited that the Challenger Little League World Series champions are here tonight. I'm going to turn it over. Sydney and Susan, I believe, are going to be our speakers tonight. Can I turn it over to the two of you to come up to the microphone? And the microphone, you can just talk at it. It will pick up your voice. And then you can introduce the team, tell us a little bit of the story, and we might have some questions afterwards. So let's welcome them up to the stage. Thanks so much.
So we'd like to thank you first for having us here. For those of you who are not familiar with the Mason Challenger League, we are part of Mason Youth Organization, otherwise known as MYO. We're a nonprofit, all-volunteer program that does baseball and softball in the Mason area. The Challenger division started in 2012 with a clinic, and we had 12 players. Our first spring, we had 30 players on 2 teams, and now we have close to 110 players on 10 teams. So this year was our 10-year anniversary. They range in age from 5 all the way up to adults now, and they hail from all over Southwest Ohio, even though 70% of them are from Mason schools that participate. What we do is we adapt the game of baseball to their ability, and we have all types of abilities in our program. And we do that by the use of baseball buddies, which another thank you to Mason City Schools, because most of our baseball buddies are Mason Middle School and high school students who come and volunteer during the summer to be a part of our program. Another really important part of our program is the clinic. We do a fall clinic every year, and 8 years ago, Coach Bly and Coach Muff took that over for us. So we'd like to give them a shout out. Coach Muff and Coach Bly, their staff, and also all of their athletes, they're amazing. And if you come out to that program, you will see why so many kids come and play with us in the spring then. They're a big part of that. The clinic is free, so they get to come and try it with no cost and see if they like it. And right now, tomorrow's our last night, so if you want to come see that. We've had a great 2022. We've had our 10-year anniversary, and we're also in partnership with the City of Mason right now, working on 2 adaptive fields that will be built in McKeno Park. So it's been a huge fundraising campaign. We're almost there. We're so close to the end, but the process is moving forward now. And then came Little League World Series, which we're going to introduce these wonderful people to you in a moment, but we'd like to thank the City of Mason Schools for giving us the most amazing send-off. And while you're only going to meet 7 of the players today that are Mason students, the other 9 are from other schools within Cincinnati. And if you could hear their parents from their eyes coming to Mason and seeing how welcome they were and having everyone cheer for them, they were overwhelmed. And what a way to start off our journey to Williamsport. A special thanks to Lori Allen and also Jeff, I know I'm going to say this wrong, Schlegler, for their help in organizing all of that and then working with the city with that. So thank you again, Mason School Board, for allowing us to come today and recognizing these amazing athletes, because I love to brag about them. They're so wonderful. So what we'd like to do is, do you want to announce names, or do you want me to? You want me to? Okay, and you'll answer questions? Okay. Okay, so Chad Murdoch is not here tonight. That's my husband. He was the manager of the team. I'd like to introduce Owen's dad, Ryan Melvin, who is one of the assistant coaches. And I do not see Allison here. Allison Beinke was one of our other coaches. She actually was one of our players in the Challenger League. And the last few years, her parents have coached a team so that she could be an assistant coach on the team. Oh, wow. So she came and represented at the Little League World Series with us. And as I mentioned, 9 of the players are from other school districts, but we're going to introduce you to the 7 that are from Mason. So Jacob, do you want to stand up? You want to come down? You want to wave? Jacob Tewksbury. There's okay. Giovanni Lupinetti, and his sister Sarah was his buddy.
We would love it if, as your name is called, if they could join us down
Yeah.
here.
And,
We'd love to congratulate them individually.
Okay. And Sarah is a high school student here at Mason and was his buddy. Sarah also is our student representative who runs our baseball buddy program and helps recruit at the school for baseball buddies. Hi, G. Do you want to say hi? Okay.
Hello.
Owen Melvin.
Hello. Hello.
Ella Posick. Sydney Roeder.
Hello.
Hannah Shadig, and her brother Andrew was her buddy, or was a buddy. Caitlin Kelly. And then we also have some of our buddies here with us, and they are parents of former Mason students. Tammy Campbell. Carrie. Oh, Steve. And Caitlin's dad, Steve Kelly. And then I also had the honor of being a buddy with one of my college daughters who flew in to be at the game. So this is, thank you. I know they all appreciate this. And if you have any questions, I'll turn it over to Sydney.
Any questions for Sydney at this point?
I can tell that you all absolutely love your sport and your team. What's your favorite thing about playing the sport?
My favorite thing about baseball is probably supporting my team because we've all done really well in the World Series. I love all the people I play with and how we support each other. And it's been an honor playing with everyone on my team, and I'm happy for you all.
What
Anything
was
else
your
I can say?
favorite thing that you did at the World Series, other than play baseball?
Other than baseball, at the World Series, my favorite thing would probably have to be maybe visiting the gift shop the day before I left. I got some awesome souvenirs. I wish I could have brought some tonight to sample, but I did get some awesome ones, and they're really awesome memories for how I enjoyed the World Series.
That's great.
Awesome.
Absolutely.
Jacob, do you want to show them your pins? Sydney, do you want to tell them about what's in those?
What are all these pins?
Yes, these pins, they were given to us by the players, by the baseball players at the World Series. We each had different pins from different players and coaches that we got to remind us of how well we did, and some of them we even got on our medals after the game.
That is cool.
And they really remind us of how well we did, and they're also a really great memory of how we did and how we spent the time together in the World Series.
Awesome.
That's fantastic.
I've heard about the fields that are coming at the Makino Park, and they sound really exciting. I know Mr. Cooper mentioned it before, but since this is beamed out around the world and we have viewers all over the place, how can people help you get across that finish line for the fundraising that you guys are partnering with the city on?
Well, thank you very much for asking about that. We appreciate that. So if you go to masonchallengeradaptivefields.com, you can find out everything about the project right now. Again, the goal is 2.1 million, and we're a little over 1.8. So we're so close. And yeah, so anything, if anyone wants to give right now, we have a promotion going on. If you donate $20, you can get a Mason Monopoly board.
Ooh, cool.
Nice.
And around town, I know of the Joe Nuxall fields over in Fairfield. Where you guys are there other fields like that are going to be sort of like what we are looking forward to here in Mason?
So ours will be similar to theirs, but we're going to go with a turf surface because we want it to be as close to baseball as possible.
Cool.
But the turf will help eliminate, or I should say level the playing field for many of our players, especially those in mobility devices and those who may have trip hazard of just walking on the typical fields. So yeah, we'll be, other than the Miracle Fields, which there's Joe Nuxall's and two other, one in downtown Cincinnati and one over in Springsboro, our fields will be very unique.
Neat. That's
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
They have
But
Venmo.
hopefully there'll be a model for the future too, even as Mason builds future fields. Maybe not so much with the turf, but our dugouts are also something we're really excited about. Our dugouts are going to be like 32 feet long and 12 feet wide, and the benches will be in segments. So now everyone will be able to sit by their friends, and everyone will be able to move about freely within the dugout. So we're really excited about that, and that's an easy thing that can transfer over to future fields.
Might be careful. We're gonna have to be swatting away the Big East tournament and Red Spring Training with those.
Well, do you want
That's
us to
awesome.
walk down and, yeah, I think we have a little gift
We
for
would
you.
love to shake each of your hand individually, and we have a gift for you. Share this to us.
Congratulations. I love it.
It's like a hard rubber surface. Congratulations.
Famous pictures of it.
I feel like you're a terror on the base pad.
Andrew, Jacob turned around for me.
Picture here, we'll turn around.
Yeah, that's so cool.
Yeah, you got it, brother. Hey G, look here.
There we go. Look, that's good. That's good. 1, 2, 3. Oh, it's really great. Thank you. Thank you. Perfect.
I'm a representative.
Great, man.
Thank you for being here tonight, all of the players, the coaches, and buddies. It was an informative and heartwarming story. We were happy to share it with you tonight. Congratulations to each one of you.
And again, they have Venmo to get the field. So if you have Venmo, MYO Challenger, get there. Let's get this field done.
Hey, also just to add, I just want to say to all the athletes, I always say this when we have students come in here who achieve, great things. You set an example for all of your classmates. They look at you, they see the commitment you have to achieving a goal and participating with the team. And sometimes they might not say it, but they observe it, and it impacts your classmates when you accomplish things like this. So really great job to each of you for what you've done. So.
Jonathan, do you have one more item?
We do have one more item, but just remind us again, the Open tomorrow night, the last practice is when? What time?
Oh, tomorrow at 6:30 to 7:30 over on varsity softball and baseball field.
Yeah, so if anybody wants
Oh,
to stop
6.
by and see them in action tomorrow at 6:30, you said. 6:30, stop by.
On
Sometimes
the
they have-
baseball and softball field.
Baseball, softball field. They'll be right over there. Our next, we love to continue to celebrate great examples of our students doing amazing things. So I'm going to turn it over to Tracy to tell us a little bit about our international heroes here.
Well, this is a Mason High School first. We have 2 Mason High School students who received gold medals at the International Olympiad on Astronomy and Astrophysics. I'm going to ask Samvit Das and David Zhang to come up to the podium while I tell you just a little bit about this incredible accomplishment. So they qualified for a 10-person national team representing the U.S. that came away with golds. Both of them individually received golds. What I think is really phenomenal is that these are students who developed friendships over science of passion. When they were actually in 6th grade, and they started working and getting excited about Science Olympiad in 8th grade. They then went on and talked to me and shared that during the pandemic, they kind of realized, well, we have a little time. We could dig into some things that we're interested in. So a beautiful example of personalized learning. They kind of really started to aspire to learn more about astronomy and astrophysics. They took actually AP Physics with Dee Dee Messer as juniors, which is a little bit unusual. But one of the things that Mrs. Messer said that's so phenomenal with these students is they really they're not trying to take every AP class. They're not trying to take every honors class, but they are really interested in doing the ones that they're inspired by, that they get excited to, and they did an amazing job as juniors, of course. But I think they're both wonderful examples of the kinds, just like of what we're trying to model, of kids finding their own passion and taking that on and going and doing great things. And so with that, I'll let them tell you a little bit about their competition, particularly that it took place, originally was supposed to be in Ukraine, and then was changed to Georgia at the last moment. So I'll let them tell a little bit about their story and just what this experience was like competing on the international stage.
So just wanted to start by thanking you guys for recognizing us, all of that. So as Mrs. Carson said, this journey kind of started all the way back in middle school when David and I bonded over Science Olympiad and found our first glimpses of interest in physics and astronomy. That kind of led to us getting into competitions like the National Astronomy Competition, which led us into the IOAA. And from there is when we took the trip over to Georgia and competed.
Yes, you have
David's
to take your
all
turn
right,
too.
now it's your chance, David.
Give us an example of what the competition was. Was it problems? Was it challenges, case studies? How'd that work?
So the competition is split into 3 parts. There's a theory exam, which I think was 5 hours. 5 hours, and then there's a 4-hour data analysis exam. And then the final portion is observational, where it requires knowledge of stars in the sky and just stuff in the sky. And then they normally take you out at night, and then they give you a telescope, and you have to use the telescope and answer questions about the sky. But it was pretty cloudy in Georgia, so we had to take a daytime observation exam instead, which was paper pencil. And then we had a little use of telescope, but it just wasn't the same. But
What do they do for a daytime object? They don't make you stare in the sun, do you?
They put objects on a building really far away, and then we just had to use a telescope to point at the building and everything to answer questions.
And what for those of us that might in this room that might not feel comfortable asking, I'll ask it. What's the difference between astronomy and astrophysics?
Yeah, I can take that one. Okay. So astronomy, as far as my understanding goes, that's more of having to do with stars and mapping things. So when David talked about observational and how you need to know all the stars in the sky, all the zodiacs and constellations and stuff, that relates more to astronomy. Astrophysics might be more of applying Newton's laws, thermodynamics, and all that stuff to stars, planets, galaxies, things like that.
In your lifetime, in your related field here, what do you hope to accomplish? What would you love to see?
I guess
Out there, it doesn't,
if I think really, really far off, maybe colonizing the rest of the solar system or something like that. I don't know. That seems like a pretty lofty goal. But
Galactic domination.
It's an awesome thought, isn't it? And you help us think about it, because I wouldn't think on these realms by myself, so certainly not.
Is there a phenomenon right now happening around us that we could see with our eyes?
Yesterday.
Jupiter's in opposition.
Opposition. Okay.
What does that mean?
For those afraid to ask.
He knows art as well.
What is it opposing, and is it hopefully not Earth?
You know, funny enough, this actually like relates to like a funny argument that we had with like the rest of the U.S. team, because half the time we confuse opposition with another term called conjunction, which both sound like equally like abstract and weird. But I think, and don't quote me on this, but I think opposition is when Jupiter is like behind the Earth relative to, if you were like standing at the sun, you would see the Earth and then Jupiter behind it. And then conjunction is like if you were at the sun, you saw the Earth, and you turned all the way around, you would see Jupiter over there.
That's what it is, exactly.
I
could have said it better myself.
It's just called opposition because, like, when you're on the Earth, the sun and Jupiter are in opposite spots in the sky.
Todd actually told me that joke the other day. I didn't get it, but now it makes a lot more sense from you guys.
Best place locally to see the stars and your favorite constellation?
Best place locally. Okay, so here's the thing. We our observation preparation wasn't the most like spread out as it could have been. So we had to like make do with the time that we had when we realized that it was a big deal. So I think my favorite place personally was the tennis courts near David's neighborhood, where we lugged out his telescope all the way out to the tennis courts and then tried to observe things at like midnight.
Got it.
It's a little bit cloudy that day, which is kind of unfortunate, but at least we saw a couple stars. I think my favorite constellation has to be Orion, because it actually looks like something unlike a lot of other constellations.
Yeah, while we were studying, we realized that a lot of constellations just didn't make any sense at all, and they're like way too faint to see or like hard to identify. I particularly remember one of the first times I went to see stars like after studying was at Catapult Park, and Samet was there too, but we didn't go very late and we only saw like a few stars. And I guess my favorite constellation I like. I think Cassiopeia is pretty nice.
I saw that NASA crashed a satellite into an asteroid this weekend. That was pretty cool. What do you guys hope to send hurtling into an asteroid someday?
I guess more rockets. I don't know.
It's not as funny to them because they actually think about it.
Yeah, exactly. Very nice work, gentlemen. Congratulations
Absolutely.
on your accomplishments. It's absolutely huge.
Well done.
Yeah, thanks.
Who'd like to come up?
Come on down, guys. We'll shake your hand, give you some prizes. Thanks so much for being here.
Congratulations.
Where's your medals, you guys?
We normally take a short break at this time so that if you have somewhere else to be and your presentation is over, you can go home, finish your homework, watch your favorite TV show.
Check out the stars.
Check out the stars.
Get a couple cuts in the batting cage.
Yeah.
If you'd like to stay, we welcome that also.
Thanks everybody for
Thank
coming.
you.
Have a good night. All right. We'll see ya. All right. Thank you.
Two impressive presentations, Jonathan. Thank you very much.
Thanks. Great kids.
Next item on our agenda is item 6, which is hearing of the public. I don't believe we have anyone tonight. It was just to address the board. Seeing none, we'll move on. Next up is item 7, resolutions. I need a motion, please.
So move.
Second?
Any discussions, questions, comments?
This is our annual appropriation resolution. We call this our permanent appropriations. Each year in September, we approve these and submit to the county auditor as part of our compliance with Ohio budgetary laws. So sometimes we can amend these throughout the year, but this is our primary expenditure appropriation resolution that we approve each year.
Any other comments? Seeing none, Sean, please call the roll.
Mrs. Yingling?
Yes.
Mr. Wise?
Yes.
Mr. Galvin?
Yes.
Mr. Orr?
Yes.
4-0.
Next up is item 8, it's superintendent's recommendations, and tonight we're going to do something a little bit different with our agenda. We have compiled some motions that are usually separate personnel recommendations from the superintendent. Going to move them into one item number on the agenda, and we will approve those, vote on those all at one time. If there is any need for separate discussion on any piece of that, the board members will let us know in discussion, and we can take that item out and address it separately. So moving on with that, I need a motion for item 8 tonight,
So move.
and a second.
Seconded.
Thank you. Any discussion? Jonathan, this was kind of your brainchild.
Yeah, so I want to appreciate the board's openness to trying a little different style. In the past, have all these sections broken out into separate sections on the board agenda, and there's some, for the folks that are preparing the agenda, it takes quite a bit of time to get all the formatting down. What this does is places everything into a consistent format because there's multiple people bringing multiple data sources together. So it does help quite a bit with our HR group, with the treasurer's group, and all the rest of us that are participating. So everyone can easily read this. It's predictable. It'll be more consistent with what section. So, for example, C will always be administrative personnel, additional duties. So you can now easily find the items you're looking for all in one document. It's on a PDF, so they'll see that under section 9, and just making that a bit more clean and transparent so you can see all the categories all in one place. So thank you again for trying that, and we can always adjust that if we need to in the future.
Sometimes simplifying is better, way better. Any other comments or questions from the board? Seeing none. Sean, please call the roll.
Mr. Wise?
Yes.
Mr. Galvin?
Yes.
Mr. Orr?
Yes.
Mrs. Yingling?
Yes.
4-0.
Next up, item 9, superintendent's recommendation on personnel. I need a motion, please.
So moved?
Second.
Any discussion, comments, questions?
So the only comments that I'll make, if I could, just go through a few things on here to highlight some things. So this document is all the personnel pieces that we're recommending for this month. So you can see on here, when it's all in one document, how much work is going on behind the scenes throughout the month to get everything updated. So whether we're looking on this front page at additional duties added to our administrators for Saturday school, to the substitute teachers that we have been working hard over the last 2 years to attract more substitute teachers into our district. If you look on page 2 of this, you'll see a long list of subs that are coming in, and all of those folks are getting processed through, oriented into the system, and added to our books. On page, as we go through here, page 4, I'll just point out another piece on here that I always like to point out is that our teachers are continually updating their credentials, whether it's through professional development through universities or other forms. On here you can see the national board certification, those teachers being recognized for that and having a financial contribution in their name for accomplishing that next level. We also, and for the first 10 years, they're getting that $2,500 mark, and then for the second 10 years of that process, getting a $1,000 mark a year for continuing that education. Below that, you'll see adjustments to salary for certified staff as well. These are teachers continuing their education, going to their master's plus 30, bachelor's plus 150. So you can see some of those listed out here. It's listed in front of us on the agenda. So congratulations to those teachers, and thank you for your continued education, continued work, and this whole idea that we are a learning institution. So it's great to see our folks continuing to make their craft better. As I flip forward through this document, as you take a look, you'll see all kinds of extracurricular activities. I want to thank everybody that's stepping up to support our folks, and whether it's extracurricular activities, supporting students specifically on one-on-one aids, to coaching and other opportunities to support our kids so that we have all those options for our kids after school as well. We wouldn't be able to do that without the folks that are on this list. And then I do point out, and I want to thank June Meadows, shows up on here. June is just let us know that she is planning to retire here in December 31st. So we want to congratulate June. June is one of our smiling faces at the front desk at Mason Middle School. So if you know June, please congratulate her and thank her for just being that constant presence there at Mason Middle School. Let me just flip through for a second, see if there's anything else. You'll see student teachers showing up on page 10. We have lots of student teachers throughout our district. The exciting part here is because we are a highly desired place to be. One of our recruiting strategies is having lots of student teachers come to us. And so you can see the student teachers are coming from Xavier, from University of Cincinnati, from Miami, from Mount Vernon, and Grand Canyon University. So these different places that our student teachers are coming from, and a teacher is assigned to them. So that teacher is not only learning from the student teacher in that reverse mentoring mode, but they're also mentoring those teachers and helping them with their craft. I was just talking to a student teacher recently and in our middle school, and she was telling me just how grateful she is to be able to see an inside glimpse of what does it look like to respond to a parent email? What does it look like to meet with a student one-on-one? How do you problem solve those things? So they're getting that training on site here through the student teaching process. I think those are all the things. You can flip through the rest of this, but I just wanted to make sure I highlighted a few of those key areas through the agenda. Thank you.
Yep, you're welcome. Thank you.
I also just want to make a comment. I think, this is the culmination of the board trying to help with some of the efficiency work that I know everybody in the district is trying to do. So I think it brings both efficiency and accountability, because the ability to track what we're dealing with in each meeting is now in more of a database as opposed to just separate files. So just that, I think it adds to the accountability as well, and transparency. And so I just applaud the initiative of the group that is pushing this forward, and we're glad to be a part of it. So.
And I just recognize, you can physically feel the personnel work that happened all in one place now. This is the first time we've tried this, so.
Any other comments?
I wanted to point out that there was something missing from our classified personnel appointments, and that's you, ma'am, sir, who wants to get hired as a new Mason bus driver.
You are right.
I would like to let you guys know that we need bus drivers, and it's a great place to work. The best riders in the tri-state area. Our kids are friendly and they're smart, and they'll talk to you. So,
and my daughter's on it too. So
as are my son and daughter. When they actually make the bus, and I don't have to drive them to school. But no, we are in need of bus drivers, and so we'd love to see your names as classified personnel appointments in Section R. So please apply. I don't know where we send them to, but
You want me to give you my cell phone number, so you just call me?
Call us.
I wouldn't put that out there. Clearly, my wife's cell phone number was on the district for a while. So, but no, seriously, we need bus drivers. So please, please, please apply.
That information is on the website, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So you're good. Good point. Anyone else? Yeah, Jonathan, I think this was a good catch, and I do think, as Kevin said, it makes things more transparent, if anything else, and as a database. Yeah, it's a great, it's a move forward with efficiency for our folks, so we appreciate that. Any other discussion? Seeing none, Sean, please call the roll.
Mr. Galvin?
Yes.
Mr. Orr?
Yes.
Mrs. Yingling?
Yes.
Mr. Wise?
Yes.
4-0.
Next up is item 10, the superintendent's recommendations, action items. I need a motion, please.
So moved.
Second?
Thank you. Jonathan, since these are your action items, do you
Yeah.
have any comments?
Let me just
regarding-
run down the list here, just so people understand if they're watching this or seeing this in the agenda. Competent Classroom, this is work that we've been doing with Big Rock 3 that also integrates with our Rock 1 and 2. But it's basically a focus on personalized learning. What does that look like in our classrooms, and what does that look like moving forward? Our learning experience team, led by Amy and her team, have been just continuing to knock it out of the park when it comes to what does that look like, even on to the specific level where we can go into a classroom and get specific feedback and collect data on what we're seeing, and so we can track trends and say, this is great work that's happening. Tomorrow, we actually have the Department of Education and several ESCs are coming to our school to walk through and see and observe and learn from the work that we're doing with personalized learning, because they're trying to redevelop and design and think about models for the state. So just celebrating the work that's happening. And if you're on student achievement, you see that and you hear about that. And if you have kids in the system, you experience that. So that's what's going on with item A. Item B is job description. We're just adjusting the cafeteria recess aide job description because we're also raising the base pay for that position. And so we've refined the job description to put on here for section B. And then in section C, you can see we're also at the same time making that rate increase, because not only do we need bus drivers, we continually need specifically recess and cafeteria aides. Oftentimes, our bus drivers are our cafeteria and recess aides. And when we looked across a comparison, anytime we look at putting any kind of raise in place to a base pay, what we do is we do a comparison study to other similar positions around our region and kind of establish that market and say, where are we and how do we compare? And then we make wise decisions on how to move forward on those so that we're paying our folks in that market. Looking at item D, you heard us talk about bus drivers and the need for that. So last year we were talking about subs, and we worked really hard to get subs here, and you saw the list continues to grow. Now we're looking for continually bus drivers, and so we're putting a bus driver incentive in place, and we have a couple different incentives that we're putting in place. First and foremost, if you're out there and you're considering being a bus driver, we used to have a $1,000 sign-on bonus. Now we now have a $3,000 sign-on bonus. So again, if you're out there and you're considering driving a bus, or maybe you drive a bus somewhere and you just want to change the pace and you want to drive around Mason and you want to experience the beautiful diversity of our district, we would love for you to be here as a $3,000 bonus to sign on after that first 6 months of driving. And then we also have a $300 incentive for being here each month and making sure that your attendance is 100%. So we're looking at that incentive for attendance as well to honor the bus drivers that are here for being here, because we still need that. And then there's also an opportunity and a raffle to win an additional $1,000 at the end of the year. So there's plenty of ways to continue to increase that pay just by being here and being a part of the system. But the bigger thing that's even better than pay is being a part of the comet culture. Honestly, if you talk to our bus drivers and you really want to pull them aside, being a part of what we do and experience here with our kids is a great place to be. But the pay doesn't hurt either. Catapult Learning, this is when we do, kids have different needs throughout our district and also throughout St. Sue and other places. That all comes through us. So when we have a specific assignment or support for students, again with item F, you have Liberty Bible. If they're disposing of any kind of items, because we are the public school that goes through, we're the agent, and so that comes through us, and we put that on our agenda so you can see that here. Curriculum textbook disposal, that's just us and looking through as we update our textbooks and we look at the things that are not relevant anymore. Believe it or not, those become irrelevant over time, and so we dispose of those. We're transparent about what that looks like. Item H on here is the baseball dugouts. I heard about the dugouts just a second ago with the Little League champions here. I don't know that our dugouts are going to be quite that nice, but I looked at Todd. Maybe we need to do a collaboration with this. They seem to have a good idea. But we are looking at, when we built our original dugouts with our baseball field, we built that for the size of what those teams looked like way back in the day, and teams have actually grown, and equipment has grown, and the need for that space to be safe. And so, because kids are hanging out on the outside of the dugout, and with how quick kids are hitting foul balls off there, we need to have a dugout that's actually getting all of our kids in there. So we've looked at that, and we're making that addition and renovation. And then I is the Mason Childhood Center addition. This is a big one. We have been talking about this since the spring. If you remember back in the spring, I did a video to our public just letting them know that we have 3 projects that we're trying to accomplish by 2025. We've gone through quite a journey with bids and adjustments and with the economy and all the inflation and everything going on. We were fortunate with what we put out there that people wanted to be here in Mason, and so we were able to get a price that was reasonable within our budget. Those funding sources, again, are funding sources that we have secured through multiple ways. One way was going back to the state when they were looking at bringing COVID dollars to support the work that was happening to keep schools open. We went back to the state and said, we are doing that, plus we need additional dollars to continue that. We know that's a one-time piece. There's a lot of districts talking about their concerns right now about the, I think there's a new term called the ESSER cliff is what I think is being referred to as, because ESSER dollars were designed to come out once to help districts, but some invested that in a way that they needed to continue to invest, and so now they're running into that situation where those aren't there anymore, so how do they continue the programs that they started? Ours, we decided right up front, and with the wisdom of Sean saying, and the board saying, basically, let's look at things that are these one-time pieces that we need to address, that are appropriate, that are connected to the student needs, and so that's how we've allocated those dollars for those one-time pieces. So that's part of, not all, but part of the funding here, and the bigger story there is that we are able to do these projects without going back to our taxpayers and asking for additional bond money at this time. So all that to say, that's the final item there with Mason. And what we're doing there, if anybody's wondering, the priority there is we're trying to draw class sizes down. So for the last 5 years, we've been trying to do that, and now we're at the place where we don't have any additional rooms, and our enrollment is not growing. But when we came back, when we took Western Row offline and we all came back to our buildings, and then some of the additional needs that we have had with students with special needs and some other wellness behavior needs that we have in the building, that creates a need for space. And so as we have those spaces, and then we're pretty close on hitting our targets with our class sizes. We've worked really hard over the last 5 years to get down to our target class size, and we have one more grade level. We're really trying to get that class size down, and this addition will allow us to accomplish those goals.
Great.
Thanks.
Thank you very much. There was a lot in there. Anyone have any comments or questions on any of the action items?
I would just add, my ears perked up, but I think it's worth reinforcing the long-term planning and the financial strategies that we've employed. Not only are we, able to make some of these projects go forward without having to ask the community for a bond levy at this time, there's not projected to be a need for one.
That's right.
As a result of this. We are well positioned to move forward, and I think that's a unique space to be in as a school district, and one we're particularly fortunate to be in given what the current economic climate is.
Yeah, I would add that we have 4 primary academic buildings for all of our students, 10,000 roughly students, and that's a unique ratio that helps drive a lot of things in our district. If you're not in Mason, you might not even know the math in your district, but you might have a district that's our size that might have 15 or so buildings. So that kind of ratio brings with it some challenges in terms of managing large buildings, but one of the benefits is an advantaged cost structure that puts us in a position to do renovations and additions to that existing footprint, to do things like bring class size down and provide opportunities for kids that a district might be faced with building a new building, which just isn't in the cards for most. So I'm glad to see another kind of step in the long-term plan to be able to make these accommodations with that goal in mind, which I think is everybody's goal ultimately, is to have the opportunity to have class sizes be smaller, particularly in the younger grades. So really glad to see this project moving on. And I love the way you're prioritizing it and managing through. You were very polite, Jonathan, but a extremely volatile and uncertain time in the economy. Yeah, when those ESSER funds came out, we all sat here and said we're looking at the abyss, and the abyss is inflation, and we knew what was coming. And you know, we've tried to position ourselves well, and unfortunately, we were right. And costs and prices are incredibly difficult to manage right now, and I just compliment the team for being creative and figuring out how to do it in a way that we can keep the project moving forward.
Any other items? I would just like to add to item I, the comments that have been made. It has been well thought out, well planned for, but one of the things that we also get out of this renovation and addition is we get back spaces that we've been using for classrooms that really weren't technically originally designed to be a specific classroom. So we get those flex spaces back for our teachers to be able to do some projects and innovation that they are so good at utilizing all the time. So yeah, that's great to see, and the bids did come back much more favorable than we originally thought. Always good news. Any other comments, questions?
Shout out to Jim, our favorite architect, who went through multiple iterations, designs, and not to be outdone with his patience with one Todd Petrie, and working through facilities. But thank you to both of those men for giving us a good understanding of what we would look at, a functional space that gives us what we're looking for to support personalized learning. I mean, I think, you know, when we have big rocks, sometimes they seem esoteric, but we're putting a $4.3 million investment to make sure that kids have a measure of personalized learning and they can get those class sizes down in second grade. So we really stand behind you and support you in delivering that to our students every day. So I'm excited to see this one get done.
That's great.
Anything else? Seeing none, Sean, please call the roll.
Mr. Orr?
Yes.
Mrs. Yingling?
Yes.
Mr. Wise?
Yes.
Mr. Galvin?
Yes.
4-0.
Next is item 11, Treasurer's Report. I need a motion, please.
So moved.
Second?
Thank you. Sean, I'll give it to you first.
Sure. A couple things to highlight. Items A through D are normal monthly financial reports for approval. Item F is one that's a little bit unique. This is our certificate of resources. That's the revenue side of the appropriation measure that we approved earlier. Same thing here. We'll submit this to the county auditor as part of our budgetary compliance. Items E and G, these are typical things that we see, but one thing I will highlight that's different this month is that kind of in line with the changes in the personnel format that Dr. Cooper pointed out earlier, kind of following that same format with donations and with the enrichment program and some of the people that are being hired to complete those services. So those are the main things in our section tonight, and Tracy has put up a sample of some of those, the new format for the donations and enrichment program. So.
Thank you. Any other comments, questions? Seeing none, Sean, please call the roll.
Mrs. Yingling?
Yes.
Mr. Wise?
Yes.
Mr. Galvin?
Yes.
Mr. Orr?
Yes.
4-0.
Next up will be committee reports. Jonathan?
Sure. I know Ian and I don't want to take over, but we attended Athletic Council, so if you want to, yep. So at Athletic Council, we discussed a few different items. One of probably the most substance piece that I think that was most interesting for us, that drove a lot of dialogue, was a follow-up on the last year we did a lot of work around the student code of conduct, a lot of work, and we tied it all back to our big rocks and our comic culture and our beliefs and our core beliefs, and saying, hey, this is who we are as a district, this is our culture we desire, this is the behaviors that we hope to see out of that and the experience we hope to create. And so just asked around the room, because it's made up of different coaches, and how is that going? The feedback has been positive, no negative feedback at this point in time. That might come later, but right now that's been good. We've communicated that clearly to our families. We worked with families to build that. Then from there, that launched a conversation into just how do we continue to invest in the growth of positive culture in our athletic programs. Some of our coaches, all of our coaches are just so dedicated, and they do hard work, and they're working with our kids and mentoring our kids. And different coaches have programs that they work with to build that culture that's just not developing athletes, but it's developing human beings and leaders. And so I'll give you an example. This last week, I think it was weekend, I can't remember if it was weekend or last week, but I was out at the soccer field with our girls soccer team, for example. So that day, they collaborate with another group that has a lot of these kiddos in it, but it's a Top Soccer program, which is another huge Mason program that draws from all of Cincinnati Tops program. And it's a soccer program for kids with different abilities. And they have everything from kids in wheelchairs with adaptive equipment there to kids on the field with buddies. And they come out on the field with our girls soccer team at halftime, and they participate. And it's like one of the highlights of their lives because they're out under the lights on the field. And it's another example of, that's just one example of how coaches invest and go above and beyond. Our girls lacrosse team, they were building beds for families in need over the weekend as well, and doing that as a community outreach piece. So, and those are just two examples that were happening just on Saturday. So there's things that are happening like that all the time. One of the things we want to do is also invest even larger and say, well, what can we do to be even more consistent as just a whole athletic program in terms of continuing to build that leadership culture with our students? And so we talked about instituting for the first time I think it's a captain's council, so to speak. If you're one of the captains on the team, being a part of a leadership council and bringing students from all of the athletic teams together to be a part of this, and then investing in that as investing in young leaders that they go back and invest in their teams as well. So that was a piece that we brought up and had a great deep dialogue about. And then the other piece I think that's really worth bringing up here is we spend a lot of time, as I mentioned here, this is all personnel, lots of personnel. And so during our personnel process, we've been very thoughtful in the last 5 years, and Tanya's not here, and she's not feeling well. She would be here. But she's done a great job of just thinking through recruiting and retention of staff and being very thoughtful and systematic about our interview process so that we're consistent, that we have a consistent set of questions, that we have a consistent process of how we use those, that each of the rounds of our interview have some consistency. And so we've not invested as much time in our athletic programs and extracurriculars and doing some of those same things for head coaches. And we do for head coaches, but then to train the head coaches and how do they bring on their staff and what are those processes and what do they look like. And so that is a commitment that we made and talked about at this meeting, specifically at this athletic council, that Tanya and I would put on and put together and design a clinic for our coaches. And they were very open to that because it's not something that we put a lot of time to. So those are just a few items that came out of that, and feel free to.
No, you nailed it. I mean, you know, if you think about athletics, you know, you're going into year 5 as a superintendent, and 2 of those were COVID years. And so I think you're finally finding some time and space to invest in that group so that they can be on the same page as the rest of us. Yeah. Our kids spend lots of time with our coaches, with each other, perfecting their skills, and so making sure that they have those same supports that they do in the classrooms and in these buildings every day, that they have it, you know, when the bell rings and they go off to their sports, that they have those supports. So I'm excited about, you know, especially the Captain's Council, just seeing those kinds of things built out and deepening the comic culture in athletics. So kudos to you for making that a priority.
So next is Diversity Council. Tracy?
Yeah, we, the way our diversity council kind of works is we always sort of have two prongs of what we're doing as a DEI council. One is to kind of co-create opportunities that our family leaders do. And so that kind of thing that we were talking about is, you might have noticed as we walked into the high school today, and in all of our buildings, you would see things that remind that we are in, Hispanic Heritage Month. And so as a district, what we began doing last year, and we're continuing, actually Hispanic Heritage Month, we started it with Black History Month in the beginning. So if you think about calendar year, this is our third one of these. We'll have a kind of a windows and mirrors event. So all month long, our students in their own school, and typically during one of their kind of universal learning experiences, so either in LIFT, if you're at MI, or RISE at ME, or CREW at the middle school, or Comic Time at the high school, or morning meeting at MECC, you're getting some opportunities to have a book tasting and to see either a window into your own culture, or a window into someone else's culture, or a mirror of your own. And so doing a lot of those things. But as a council, we are putting on a great community event that we would love to have all of you at on October 13th in the middle school large commons. Beginning at 5 o'clock, we are going to have our own Cincinnati Baya, which is wonderful Mexican folkloric dancing. We have one of our DEI ambassadors, Michelle Taro, who is originally from Guatemala, sharing a craft that is from her culture, and people can do that as a takeaway with them. We'll have book tastings, and most of all, food and fun. So we would love to have you come and join that. We also, as a council, spend time giving input and feedback around district diversity priorities, and also our OKRs. And so one of the things that we looked at actually was something that Dr. Cooper was mentioning during Athletic Council, but for us, we wanted to look at how are we doing on recruitment and retention of our underrepresented groups. So Tanya did a great job of kind of sharing a little bit of what we are, and then tapping into our own community. What we also recognized is that we have really so many resources within our community too, and the pipeline for teachers has never been smaller. It has never been harder to decide to go into the teaching profession than it is right now. And so we want to tell people Mason is a good place to land. We want you here. But also, as we think about one of the district's OKRs this year is really it's leveraging the creativity of our students, staff, and community to shape the future of career and life-connected learning experiences in Mason City schools. And so that's kind of a goal that we have as one of our OKRs that we thought, in a way, it also could help us a little bit in getting some of our own community's diversity more reflected in our classrooms, when people can see people who look like them, or people who are just had an experience of a different profession coming in. And so that was another way that we tapped our DEI council, thinking about those priorities and how we can also use that to help with our strategy.
Oh, thank you, Tracy. Charles, do you have anything to add? Nope. Okay, next up is facilities. Todd?
Much of what was approved today with the MECC project and also the dugouts, we discussed at the last meeting, and also possibly our next phase of looking at classroom needs as well. So without a doubt, thank you for approving those. And me personally, I look forward to getting those started just as soon as we can. Who I was texting earlier was the contractor for MECC and the dugout contractor saying, we're ready to go. Let's go. Start ordering tonight.
I know you're chomping at the bit there. Kevin, you're on that committee. Do you have anything to add?
Nope.
All right, next up is Mason Schools Foundation. Tracy?
Well, our meeting happened right before what was just a phenomenal event and a real Mason moment that actually is sort of a culminating of a lot of Mason momentum that took to get us here. So if you got to be at tailgate and watch our donor wall celebration, many thanks to those of you who were able to join, but just a terrific opportunity to to really kind of chronicle a little bit of the journey that has gotten us here. We were able to recognize our former Campbell Family Founders Award winners, which was super meaningful. That is an award that we give each year to, it can be anyone in the community who really has a spirit of giving back. And so that was very meaningful. We had an opportunity to recognize this year's Above and Beyond teachers and our Beacon of Excellence Teacher of the Year, and also just some of those donors that have really stepped up over the years to give back significantly. And one of the terrific movements that we had as a community was our Lunar Moms of Mason gave there at the monument gave a $6,100 donation, similarly to ways that they have done for the last few years at our gala. So it was just a beautiful way. And then that kicked off a silent auction, and that we're still like looking to talk about what those numbers are. But just we have amazing members of our board, and just a huge shout out to Danita Anyuan and Natalie Newberger and Jessica Orr and Marsha Wise and Danita, or I'm going to miss people, but there were Alicia Farbstein and just Jamie Natorp. There were so many of them who worked really, really hard to make that event terrific. And what all that fundraising does, so when you get an ask from the foundation, what it does is what actually also happened at our meeting, which was a quick grant approval for music therapy for students who are in specialized classrooms at Mason Intermediate. And that's something that we don't have the ability to kind of do. They bring in really terrific, and they're trained music therapists, and we used that a few years ago, and they were able to actually use their reading challenge funds that they did in last year's reading challenge at Inline, so they're accessing those to do that. So that's what you're funding. When you give to the Mason Schools Foundation, it's going to fund these above and beyond opportunities that are more than what our district taxpayers are taking on. But it's something that we think is really incredible, to give teachers that ability to dream big, and students to have really incredible experiences.
Jonathan, anything to add?
No, that
She did a good job.
captured it perfectly. And thank you to everybody that participated in the online. That's the first time we tried that. So I can't wait to hear how the results are. Yeah.
And the monument is really beautiful.
Oh, the monument is great. And yeah, and I remember the moment we had that conversation about the monument. I mean, it was, I think, Todd, I don't know if he was in the room yet. We committed him to being a part of the
He did get special swag that he was a sign czar. He was
Okay, good.
monument
I
czar.
remember that with that conversation with the foundation. So we should be able to do something like that. That would be really nice. And it's nice to see it all the way through and to come out.
Okay. Next committee is student achievement. Amy?
Yeah, we had our first meeting of the school year, so it was an opportunity to just get the big picture overview of our OKRs for the year, and then really focused in on Objective 1, which is about growing students as readers, writers, and thinkers. And so we dug into some of our big picture data, and what we see is that while we continue to take pride in having a very high achieving school district and high growth school district, we also see trends that we really want to keep an eye on coming out of the pandemic. And they're trends that we're seeing across the state and nationally, but we also know that we want to make sure that those systems of support for our learners are really strong and in place. And so I had an opportunity here at a district level, some of the work that we're doing to, we're calling it aligning our student-centered systems of support. So just making sure that the way that we're identifying students' needs, that we're responding to it, really is tracking across all 4 of our buildings, 5 of our buildings, however we want to count them. And then from a curricular lens, our learning experience supervisor shared the really important work that's being done by our teachers to identify what we call our shared learning agreements, or those learning essentials, knowing that we say, every learner, this is what will be mastered and how we'll be able to know, and that we can make sure that our teachers have all of the resources they need to be able to do that. And then a true delight, we heard from our middle school team, and a real shout out to Assistant Principal Brittany Burlage and school psychologist there, Lindsay Hoffman, who have just over the past multiple years really taken it on as part of a passion project for themselves to really reinvent and reinvigorate some of those systems of support for learners at the middle school, including all learners. So we've heard about crew, which is like our advisory time. And the idea of crew is like rowing a boat, you know, so that they're all sort of on that boat together. And so Assistant Principal Burlage and our school psychologist Hoffman have really thought about, okay, so what are the tools you need to row, and how do we make sure, so they have another sort of, it's not an acronym, it's just rowing and making sure they have the oars. And that's included lessons and learning for all students about really important learning about themselves and how they can study best, and strategies if you're facing procrastination, you know, what are some strategies that you can try to put into place? And then more specialized supports for students who might need more support in academic skills and reading or math or otherwise. And so it was wonderful to kind of hear from them and just the really important work they're doing to support those learners, and proud and grateful for their efforts. So I don't know if you have anything to add to that.
Was great. I think you may hear that we're a data-driven district, and sometimes that's sort of, again, esoteric, but they were using data from our students to identify students who had not yet been identified in a formal way to give them support. And I just think that's fantastic, you know, that we aren't waiting for someone to raise their hand. We are walking alongside them and asking them, how can we best support you? And some of the testimonials from those students was just, I mean, it just made your heart melt. And, you know, to know that we have that ability in this district to get that data and then connect that data to a student, and then the first thing they said they did was to find out who they are, what's their story, to, you know, a project we had a couple years back, which is My Story Matters. They found out who that learner was, right? And it wasn't, you know, a lot of times it wasn't a deficiency in learning, but they maybe needed someone to just be there for them. Mm-hmm. And so I thought that was just a magnificent use of our data in driving the kind of culture we want to see. So that, you know, kudos to them for that, and you know, let's keep that Mason momentum going. So
Thank you. And that's all of our committee reports for tonight. Next up, we have legislative update. Jonathan?
Yeah, I'll continue to remind everybody the legislative update will just keep yourself poised, because we will be right after elections in November. It will start to speed up quickly, and then all the way until January. They'll come back right around that time, and we'll have to pay close attention. You'll hear lots of activity. You'll hear lots of stuff going on. Recently you'll even hear ODE weighing in on some things or the state board weighing in on some things. But in terms of actual action that we need to be at the table to be ready for, first time that will start to happen is right after the November election, depending on what happens there, and then again closer to that January timeframe. And we have our eyes on some of those topics right now. So just always be just ready and paying attention.
Charles, did you have anything to add? No. All right, thank you for that. Next up is administrator commentary. Tracy?
Thanks tonight.
And Amy?
Well, I just wanted to add a little bit. Jonathan touched on this, but we're really excited. We have 18 visitors coming tomorrow. They are what are called a new personalized learning specialists in the state of Ohio. It's part of a new initiative from the Ohio Department of Education. So they're coming from ESCs, or Educational Service Centers, from around the state, as well as Knowledge Works, which is who the Department of Ed has partnered with for this. And they're just really launching a new statewide focus on personalized learning. And as part of their learning, a smaller group came last spring and said, sort of on a scouting trip, and said now that they're officially launching this, that they really wanted to bring this group to Mason to really learn from us and our story as they build their own understanding of personalized learning. So we are grateful to be able to learn with them and to be able to help share our story. So we'll be able to visit some classrooms together, to be able to have them meet with our learning experience team. They're very curious to hear about how that works. So a big thank you to Shauna Buemiller, Chrissy Huffnagel, who have really helped to organize this, but then also really, I think about our cohorts of teachers from 4 years ago who were really sort of those first pioneers with personalized learning here, and all of our educators who have now said, yes, I'm going to figure out what this looks like in my classroom for our learners too, to be able to be a model to other districts in the state is really exciting.
Absolutely. That's a very good point. Thank you very much. Christine?
I want to echo Amy and Ian in applauding the middle school for their work on row and crew. It's a phenomenal experience for our kids, and for all students to have that opportunity is really rare, I think, especially at the middle school level. And I think it also is a testament to all of the work leading up, the personalized learning work and all the foundation where they see those opportunities, as well as our focus on data to be data informed and to just have a culture that actually embraces and allows for those things to happen. So they've done great work.
Thank you. Todd?
First, I'd like to thank you for supporting bus drivers tonight. You know, I've done this quite a number of years, and I've never seen quite the situation like we have. We're one of the few school districts that haven't canceled routes, but a bit of a hidden secret is we need 101 drivers, and right now we have 98. So every day, automatically, we're covering for 3 routes. And then we have, you know, typically people out sick when you have that many drivers with different things that they're out with, surgeries and things like that. And our bus drivers, I can't say enough, because I've spent a lot of time over there recently. I can't say enough about them, because every day those 3 routes have to get covered. And as we go through the progression of the high school to MIME to MECC, they usually show up, those 3, a few minutes late, because each day we're rotating drivers to be able to cover those to handle not having someone. So your incentives, I hope the goal is to not only attract new drivers, but also to retain the great drivers that we have who are dedicated, so that we can continue to move our department forward. Right now, I know we're starting to already, just since Tracy sent out a letter last week, I think we have 7 people who have already contacted us, and we're trying to work out interviews with them, and hopefully they're completed by Friday. So we have 1 driver that actually started yesterday being able to drive kids, so tomorrow hopefully we'll take her own route, because even though we hire them, they usually have to spend 5 days driving with a trainer to get familiar with things. So we can't just hire someone who's never driven and say, go drive Mason students. That's not how we do things. So hopefully, Lord willing, we see some real change, and it stays that way to where it's consistently on par. I know where I live in Kings, I think the last information I had, they were down 6 drivers. So, and they're half the size of us. So it's just a testament to our drivers and their commitment to what they do. And I tell you, the other day when we had a meeting and we discussed with them the support you all were going to give, they applauded. So for those watching today, I have to tell you, the taxpayer money that we use to support our drivers, they were beyond appreciative. And that to me just meant a lot, to see people be thankful and grateful when good things are done for hard work taking place.
Tough job, and we are grateful to have the folks that we have. Thank you. Sean?
Yeah, I just want to echo Todd on the, just appreciate the flexibility of our bus drivers. They're all working in lots of different areas and trying to do what they can to make sure we have kids safely coming to and from school. So appreciate that. Appreciate the board supporting lots of things. We were talking earlier tonight about all the different things we tried over the last couple of years to make sure we have, whether it's sub teachers or bus drivers or aides or, you know, all the things we have in place for our kids. And so appreciate the board's support with that. And then lastly, I just wanted to congratulate both the Challenger World Series team and the 2 gentlemen for their gold medal efforts and their families and everything that goes into that. So appreciate them coming tonight, and congratulations to them.
That's great. Just a couple quick items, but one, congratulations to our Little League crew. They're just such the joy to watch. If you get a chance tomorrow night, check them out. And to watch our softball team and baseball team just integrating together and cheering each other on, because they do build really strong relationships with the kids. And so when those kids, because I have one of them, see all those kids out at like the high school football game or whatever, it's like they have this buddy that they've made a connection with. So I love seeing that. The personalized learning work, what Amy's talking about, if you go back to 2015 when we started talking personalized learning, and it was there was almost a little bit of a moment where we were just not sure if even the terminology would go, but we all sat down, I think, and said, no, this is what it's about. It's about the person. We're going to keep that as because there was a lot of misconceptions about it at the time flying around. And I remember meeting some players at that time. James Rickenbach wrote a book back then. He was one of the first guys who wrote a book, and some others. And I was at one of these Knowledge Works conference, and they're talking about it. To see it come full circle, and I saw James, the author of that book, last week. I ran into him and I was able to just tell him, you would just be so excited to come and see what our learning experience team is doing now. I mean, the things they're doing now are just next level stuff. And so it's exciting and it's not bragging about, it's just the hard work that we believe in, and to watch Amy and her team and everybody just come together around what does that look like. And our whole team is now built into our walkthroughs this year. So we're all going out and doing walkthroughs and giving feedback and seeing what that looks like with our teachers, and to see our teachers leading the way in that. I get just fired up about it. It's the most exciting work that I can imagine us doing. So last thing I'll mention is Journey to 2030. We've talked a lot about that, and as Ian mentioned, we can just look up for a second, which has been so nice and refreshing this year, and to look out and to start what we have been talking about. And so we have large engagements coming up with our community, and so when you see that information out there, we'll put that information out, but we'll also be inviting a lot of folks to that. But we want you to be engaged in that process. And so please, if you're interested in talking about the future with us and what that looks like, and what do we want the portrait of our learner, our comet, to look like when kids are leaving Mason City Schools, what are the skills and competencies we want them to have? What are the experiences that they deserve to have as we're developing our next 5 to 8 years? And what does that look like? So please lean in, let us know. We'd love for you to be engaged in that process.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Next, we'll have board commentary. Ian, you want to go first tonight?
2 quick things. Congratulations to MYO Challenger. If you're excited about them winning Little League World Series, go donate. We need that. Those 2 adaptive fields in Mankino Park. I just retweeted their link to donate. They have Venmo, so please go donate. And 2, just thanks to all the faculty, staff, admins. Smooth start to the year for a guy with 2 kids in this district. Just got a phone call from a teacher for my youngest son, and it was, they were just calling to say what a great job he was doing. So always great to get those kinds of phone calls. Not when your kid hasn't performed well or something like that, but just that we're driving that thought to say, you know what, let's build a little bit of culture and let the parents know that their kid is doing really well. So excited about it.
So, Kevin?
Well, I'll add to the recognition tonight for the challengers. A lot of good work on the agenda reflected here, and it's good work and it's a lot of work, and I understand that. I appreciate the leadership that helps make that possible. Also just we've got a young man in our district that's facing some big health challenges. It's been all around on social media, but maybe if you're aligned to prayer, you could join some prayer warriors out there for Isaac Miller. Isaac's family is one that has been a blessing to others who have been in difficult times, and it's time to kind of circle around and help them during this time. So certainly wish him the best, and he's in our prayers.
Charles?
Yeah, I'll just echo the congrats to our students that got to be part of the superintendent's presentation tonight. Really fun to recognize them and see their excitement to share their stories with us. Echo to the appreciation for a relatively smooth start to the year. I know Monday was a little hiccup for those of us at MEC, and having some fun extra special bonding time with our little ones at home, and whatever else we did to scramble to cover that. But I know our teachers and staff were still working around the clock. I got a pretty thorough and detailed email from our teacher, knowing that is not just a vacation day for them. They got a lot to do, and stuff that they're doing. So, and then also echo just the prayers for the Miller family and coming around them. I know this is a great community that will, wrap their arms around them.
Thank you. I enjoyed tonight seeing the students, the excitement and the thrill that all of our students have when they get to come to this meeting and speak about whatever their passion is and whatever they love. I know we have the right person in your role, Amy, because you were the only one in the room going, yep, when those two space geniuses were explaining their process. But yeah, it's just always so enlightening and heartwarming whenever we have students come here filled with passion about what it is they're doing. Speaking of passion about our school district, the past weekend we had, since the last board meeting, we had Heritage Fest, the parade, and that was a lot of fun. It's always an opportunity for us to get out and mix as board members with a bit of the community. We march in the parade, and we get to touch base, and I heard several heartwarming stories regarding our schools, and it's always a fun day, and I'm glad that we once again took part in it. I'll just end with the comment of the Miller family, and I think Charles, you put it most appropriately. We have a community that has a habit of wrapping their arms around families in need, so we'll just move forward with that on our hearts and prayer in our hearts for them. With that, I need a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Second.
Vote.
All in favor?
Yes.
Thank you.